Why don't we introduce? We start. Let's introduce our volunteers. Yep.
Hi, my name is Luna, and I come from South Korea.
Wait. Okay, we start. Got it. And Luna, you told me something before class that first day when I talked to you about your exam score,
Yeah,
and you said it wasn't really very good,
yeah.
and it was an 88% on math, right?
Not 88%. My score was 88. So it was still like the top, inside the top, 5%.
Yeah,
but
no,
still,
exactly. And so Luna heard from people in Korea, like, oh, but 88 is still not very good because it's not the top.
yeah, I've been having a lot of comments like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And she said, no, it's not a very good score. And I'm like, 88, man, I would have died for an 88. But she started hearing from Koreans like, yeah, man, that's not a very good score. So your compatriots threw you under the bus. All right, Jaden.
Hi, I'm Jaden. I'm a third-year mechanical engineering major. I'm from State College, Pennsylvania.
Hey, can I tell you a story? My wife watched Jaden be born. She took photos of Jaden being born. Yeah. Is that cool? Dude, does that embarrass you? That's pretty cool, man. So whenever I look at him, I think like, oh my God. I didn't see any of the photos, by the way, so yeah.
I'm Kiana, and I'm from Brazil, and I'm a sophomore.
Hello, my name is Simon. I'm from Lebanon and I'm a computer engineer.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for volunteering. So I'm going to talk a little bit, and then the four of you are going to have a conversation. So mostly I'm going to talk here, but I'll come back. And so the class today is called 750,000, and we like to come up with what we think are kind of interesting titles, and this title is definitely going to be one of the best of the semester. But before we do it, I just want to make a comment about two things I want to talk about. To anybody watching the stream or watching the videos, I want to really ask you, with as much kindness as I can in my heart and in my mind, ask you to remember that these four people are students, okay? They don't have all the answers. They don't think they have all the answers. In fact, they probably don't think they have any answers. The only reason they offer any answers at all is because I'm asking them questions, and they are polite enough to respond to me. They may say some things that you disagree with. That's okay. That's what the class is. The reason so many people like to tune into this class is because they like to hear what students say, and they think that I'm doing a really nice job of taking multiple positions in the class. Well, that means somebody might say something that you disagree with. That's okay. That's what you want. That's what we want. So can you please remember that? That's the first thing. The second thing is this. Can we go to the next slide? This is not really about today's class, but it's just something that popped up and I thought about today, and I thought, So a lot of people around the country are getting fired because of comments that they made about Charlie Kirk and mocking his death, or sometimes not even mocking his death. I use that particular headline from the Wall Street Journal, but sometimes just being insensitive. And, what I want to say, what I would like to say is, I know that many of you in the class have asked me what I'm thinking about this, so that's why I'm bringing it up. And what I want to say is, be very careful when you walk down this path, where you see this blue line up here, right? We create some kind of line, and I don't know what the line is right now. Well, the line of insensitivity about the death of another human being. But I hear lots of crazy insensitive things. I watch videos where somebody dies and people in the videos meant to, it's people are laughing at the debt. There are all sorts of things. I don't know what that line is, but someone has drawn a line here. And I just want to say, be very careful about that, because somebody can just move the line and you don't even know that you've crossed it. There are some things that people are saying that I'm like, whoa, that is particularly bothersome. But like, people in the highest levels of office have made comments that I find to be rather bothersome. So it's like, I don't know what, just be careful, okay? With that in mind, those of you on the left, particularly on the left, who feel really incensed by this, can you go to the next slide? It wasn't very long ago that we were canceling people and people were losing their jobs because somebody else thought that they were being racist or sexist or homophobic. And they had put a line on the ground saying, hey, if you say X word or Y word, or you do a certain gesture, you've crossed the line and you're going to get canceled. And we're going to cancel you, and you should be fired, and you should be this, and you should be that. And because that's insensitive to whoever we've deemed to be worthy of our defense and support and so on, okay? So what happened here was there was this security guard. I'm going to talk to you. And he was working at a school, and the student was getting out of control. I think there was a fight, and he broke it up. And the students started calling him the N-word, right? And he kept calling him the N-word, leave me alone, you, and da-da-da-da-da, right? And the guy said, don't call me that word. Like, don't call me that word. Like, don't call me, right? Can you go to the next slide? That's him, by the way, right? And so don't call me that. And finally, the student said it again, and he's, trying to haul this guy, take this guy outside. And he says, don't call me. And he says the word again. And he got fired. And I'm like, whoa, hang on a second. Because the school system had zero tolerance. So he couldn't even say it like that. And he got fired. Okay? Now, I did a class on this, a few years ago, and we're like, yo, man, this is some pretty crazy stuff right here. Like, maybe we've lost control. I don't know what's going on, but there were lots of people, include progressives and anti-racism people, who were like, no, yeah, that's what it is. We have to draw the line. Well, right now, some people are saying we have to draw the line. And I found it to be questionable in this case. And maybe it's equally questionable today. But you have to decide that. That's just me. I don't know. I don't make the rules. But it's interesting. The balance, right? So always in this class, remember, the goal always is to hold a mirror up to ourselves and say, what do I think? Maybe I don't have all the information. Maybe there's another way to see something. Maybe there's just another way to understand whatever it is that we're talking about. So I would say right now, as we're watching all of this retaliation and retribution, remember the story of this guy. And there are many, many, many people like him. So, okay. All right, let's go back. Go ahead and then go one more. Okay, back. Okay, so back in August, I'm gonna bring this. There was a politician in Colombia who was assassinated, Miguel Uribe. Okay, he was assassinated on the streets of Bogota. And Colombia is a country that had a fair amount of violence and was considered to be one of the most violent countries in the world not long ago. The peace process has been implemented, but they're struggling a little bit. But anyway, about a week after this, I went down to Colombia. That's when I took Julie her Blue Moon. And I wondered, I saw this headline, and I said, it inflames Colombia's political divisions. And I thought, wow, wonder what's going to be happening. Now, I know Colombia pretty well. I have an apartment there. I spent a lot of time there. It wasn't just going to see a museum and, that kind of thing, right? I got down to Colombia, and there's nothing. Nobody was talking about it. Like a week later, no one's talking about it. It's not really in the news. But I saw the headline. And even me, as the person who's been to Colombia many, many, many times, I thought, whoa, I saw the headline, and I thought, hey, this is big. It's an assassination, Okay. Right after this, go to the next slide. I saw this 750,000 years. And it came from this writer. He's a British writer. He wrote this book, How to Live Dangerously, and he calculated 750,000 years. And I'm not even going to ask you if you think you have any idea, because you'd never in a million years be able to guess, but I'm going to tell you what this guy calculated. What he said was, kidnapping in the United States is so rare, okay, that a child would have to be outside, unsupervised, be outside, playing by themselves, unsupervised, for on average 750,000 years before that child was abducted or taken by a stranger. Okay? That's how rare kidnapping is. This was his calculation. Now, I tried to kind of dig into this to figure out. First off, I just want to hold that. Can you hold that? Everything you know about children and danger from strangers and so on. This is in the United States, okay? Everything you think about it, everything we talk about, 750, you take your child, have your child play outside by herself or himself. It would take, on average, if everyone did that, 750,000 years before your child was kidnapped. You get it, or does it make sense? It makes sense, everybody? You get it? Okay? I read that, and I went, whoa. It took me back to Colombia. It took me all over the place with lots of different ideas. And I tried to dig around and figure out how he actually calculated that, but in a way it doesn't matter. It matters, but it doesn't matter, because maybe it's not exactly 750,000, but I have used very similar numbers as this, because kidnapping, stranger kidnapping, is so rare anywhere in the world, really, okay? But yet, it's one of the greatest fears, if not the single greatest fear of a parent, losing a child. So that's sits right there, okay? So I thought, what an interesting idea or interesting topic or number to start us in a conversation, okay? To have this conversation with you all, because I know what I think about these issues, but what do you think? So let me just start with one of you. What do you think about that number? How surprised are you? And Jaden, you're holding down the United States. Okay, again, Luna's from Korea. It's Kiana is from Brazil, and Simon is from Lebanon. Okay? So you all grew up. You grew up in Korea, Brazil, Lebanon. So each one, talk about your own country. We'll get to that a little bit, but Jaden, I'll just start with you. Like, when you hear that number, like, what do you, as an American kid, as an American growing up here as a kid?
So it's like a really big number, which is like very surprising that it would be that big. But like once I start to think about it, it makes sense. Like I know that like kidnappings by strangers are incredibly rare and almost unheard of. And that's like why they make news when they do happen. And so like it's almost like surprising that like the things that we're like most concerned about, like the things that we find the scariest are like some of the things that are like least likely to actually harm us, right? That like we're like when we're scared about like kids getting kidnapped by strangers than we are about car crashes, when like car crashes are like the leading cause of death among children.
How about somebody else? What do you hear the number? What do you?
So, I mean, I grew up like watching a lot of true crime, or like I still watch a lot of true crime, and I think it's more about how much it gets reported, like how big of news it is. So like you like planes are way safer than cars, but we are way more scared of crashing in a plane than in a car because when a plane crashes, it's like a huge thing and everyone hears about it because it happens way less often. Same thing with like probably kidnappings because it's a, you know, because it's so rare, it gets reported and we have like Amber Alerts and stuff like that.
Right. So if it does get reported, it gets really widely reported, and then it's front page. It's a major thing. It's okay. Huh? Simon, how about you? You're still thinking, all right, Luna? How about you? What do you think of that number? It's probably much higher in Korea, by the way. Although there's something going on in Korea right now with kidnapping. Are you aware of that?
I think I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm
You're
sorry.
not?
Yeah.
All right, I'll fill you in on it.
I'm not so aware about, numbers and about, like kidnapping crimes, but first to kind of introduce myself, I lived in Manila, Philippines
Yeah.
for about, I don't know, 11 years since I grew up there in, like in my early elementary school years. So I think when it comes to kidnapping, like I've experienced, like two cultures, but no, I didn't like experience kidnapping, but the number itself seems really big, but I'm really not aware how it is in Korea. I thought it was actually really safe, but you said, it's much bigger there, so that's something that surprised me actually.
So here's something that's interesting right now. There were a couple cases fairly recently of people who they thought had the intentions of kidnapping kids. I think 2 different cases. And so now there's this big response to it. Even though, by the way, Korea is really safe. Like, really safe. So, like, you go to I mean, can you say how safe Korea is?
So Korea is, I think, one of the safest country, like for tourists to go and travel. Because, I think it's similar in state college. Because to be honest, when I first came to America, it was state college is my first, kind of destination in myself being in America. So I thought it would be really dangerous, but to be honest, I think it's a bit similar here. So whenever we go to cafes and we study there, even though we put our laptops or our phone, our wallet, it's gonna stay there, like, to be honest, like forever.
Yeah, you could go. Like one way you reserve a seat at a cafe and
and even though you put it there and go back there next day, I probably can assure that it's gonna be there, or like the cafe owner's gonna take it for you and then
you'd
give
never
it back.
take it. Yeah, no, they wouldn't even touch it because it's like it's not there, so you wouldn't touch it. So it's similar in Saudi and Doha. There are a lot of other places, but for sure. Well, but nonetheless, when I think about other countries and places, it's not that different, right? There are certain areas in Brazil, you have wealthy elites. There are kidnapping rings in Brazil and so on. I don't know about Lebanon, but okay. Go to the next slide. So there is this issue, and we're going to stay on this issue. I just want to say a couple things. There's this negativity bias that we have, that negative things or things that threaten us, we're more biased toward remembering what they are and really listening to what they are, and it's probably built into some kind of survival mechanism that we have. So, and then in the media, of course, because of this, if it bleeds, it leads. And if it's violence, it's going to be a lead story because people, we want to know. People just have this curiosity. Dude, why do you watch true crime, by the way? Yeah. What draws you to true crime? Like, why would you want to know? Why would you want to watch that?
I think it's like morbid curiosity. Like, you just kind of like want to know more about certain things and why people do certain things, or it's like when people say like something's a car crash, like it's terrible, but you can't look away. Kind of like that, I guess.
When you finish watching things, do you feel more to what degree do you feel more insecure?
Honestly, I think with time, you just kind of get desensitized to it, and you just don't really, at the same time that you're more aware that it exists, if you feel like it's never going to happen to me.
My friend, you're probably not more desensitized to it. It stays in you. It's going to stay in you.
I feel that the more you see it, especially like bringing it back to Brazil, like we watch all that stuff, like serial killers and like kidnappings and abductions and stuff like that here. Yeah. And no one makes documentaries about kidnappings and serial killers and stuff like that in Brazil because it just happens so. We have a lot of crime. It's not as dangerous as people think it is, but it's pretty dangerous. So like, again, if it happens a lot, it's not going to get that much attention.
It happens more than Korea.
Definitely.
Yeah. So here's one other thing I want to say before we jump off. Go to the next slide. One thing that's really important is that this is a sociology class. So the four of you, it's important that you know that I'm interested in averages. We're interested in groups. I'm not interested on the extreme ends. This is a bell curve. And if you look at the numbers, you'll notice how much is really inside, mostly the center of the bell curve. That's normal. It's the extreme ends. And crime becomes something that happens at the extreme ends. So I'm really curious about what's in the sort of normal space, right? That's the thing that I'm trying to talk about more in here. It's kind of like racism, right? How much racism exists? Well, if I just asked everybody in the class who's ever experienced a really serious, had some serious experience of racism, maybe two people would raise their hand. And then it's like, is that a lot or is it not a lot? It's like, what is it? So keep that in mind. All right, next slide. So here we go. People have this idea that your generation, you've been coddled. Like, man, you've been coddled way too much. And it's quite problematic, actually, the amount of coddling that you've experienced. And, you haven't, because of the fear of kidnapping, the fear of crime, the fear of war, right? The fear of violence, the fear of whatever, fear of something. So you've been caught. You've missed out on an opportunity to strengthen your competence, your confidence, your independence, opportunities to solve these everyday problems that you have. You're not out. You're not experiencing the world. Everyone's just watching. Like, oh, be careful. Like, oh, don't do that. So you haven't had the idea is that you have not had the opportunity to live without fear. Okay? This is a narrative. It's a very strong narrative. In fact, I got a text message from a buddy of mine who watched one of the classes this semester, and he said, you know what the problem of youth is today? They're too protected. They don't know anything. They don't have any experiences. Okay, so this is the idea. So I had this thought Huh. Let me just ask you all about this. Let's ask you. You're the experts on your own lives. Because I also have the idea that people don't change very much from one generation to the next. Because people ask me all the time, like, how are your students today? They must be really different than when I was a student. You know, I'm like, no, they're not really. I don't see much difference. But I don't know. So you all tell me. So here's my first question. When you hear this statement that you've been coddled too much, protected too much, what's that mean? What do you see? What's it mean to be coddled? Coddled means like overprotected. You know, we're like, oh, it's okay. We're gonna. Okay. What's that mean to you? What do you hear?
So I think there's probably like some truth to like that, like we probably like treat kids more like
No,
we
hang on.
and
Could just talk about you.
okay.
What's it mean for you? How was your childhood growing up?
Okay. Yeah, like I was gonna say, I know personally when people talk about like, oh, your generation's coddled, it feels like it's like a personal dig sometimes about like that we're soft in a way that like previous generations weren't.
Ah, okay. And you feel like as though that's some kind of an attack or something.
Yeah.
Because you don't feel soft.
No.
Do you feel like you didn't have a chance to experience independence? Do you live with a lot of fear? Do you know?
I was gonna say I don't know how like the level of fear like people experience compares to like previous generations. I think it'd be hard to say. I think the things that we're afraid of might very well be different. Like that, like the risk, like the things that like the risk to us are different than and be different than the risks that like our parents or grandparents might have seen.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna come back to that. I want to ask you what you think those risks are. Simon, how about you? When you know the question is when you hear this that you've been coddled, what do you hear?
In Lebanon, it's different than here, like way different than probably any country in the world. We probably don't have electricity 24/7 or water, so we probably had to like 2 hours a day we had hot water, or like an hour say. So like we had to like live through those. Like we had to like have a time for every slot. Like the whole family had to go take a shower during these 2 hours, and the last person that goes gets cold water, I guess.
So this is very, and also very recently, because you've been in a big crisis.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
In Lebanon, we like solving problems. We don't rely on the government at all because it's not reliable at all. So we had to get our own sources. Every household had to get his own sources. People think of Lebanon as a country that's poor in some way, but for me, Lebanon is probably one of the best countries in the world. Like, I would rather Lebanon than here, but due to circumstances right now, Lebanon doesn't have the opportunities the USA have. So, pretty much, Lebanon, it's a survival mode. Lebanon is more than a survival mode than like living.
Wait, so just go, I'm going to stay with you for a second. Go a little further. What do you get there that you don't get here? Think about like these things up here. Like what did you get growing up?
Well, so growing up, it was more like, I definitely was like, my parents took care a lot of me and my sister. So we were like most of the time either with my grandparents, Christmas was with the whole family, and those probably everyone has the traditions here, but still, like those feelings are very different when it's back home than here. But sometimes we have like difficulties, but we don't fear because sometimes we're like, it will work out in some way or another. I trust God a lot in my life.
Yep.
When I was a kid, I did not, but it's not until now. But pretty much my family was a lot Christian than me, so they trusted God all the time. But it was always working out most of the time.
Yeah, so things just work out.
Yeah, they worked out. Like sometimes like we don't get electricity. We had to like turn on what's it called, candles,
Yeah.
in the entire house. Or sometimes we would just go out. We had protests, war, everything. You guys probably hear everything on the news. So yeah, if you guys think of Lebanon as a war country, well, technically you're wrong, but still, that's all I want to say.
So
Because Lebanon is, if you want to think about it, there is the Christian side,
Yeah.
and well, we're all united. But the thing is, there is just, well, I don't want to go into
no,
detail.
yeah. No, we'll come. Let me
we'll
come
skip
back
that
to it.
part.
Yeah, I haven't.
okay,
I have
okay.
a couple more questions for you. Let me. What's it mean? Wait, you didn't? What's it mean to be coddled? Like when you hear that, like your generation, people are writing books on this. There's especially a really famous book by these two writers, The Coddling of the American Mind, the youth. But that's just American. But really, people are applying this all over the world. Maybe not Lebanon.
So I think my teens were a little bit different than like the average. So I moved when I was 14 by myself to Switzerland, and then I lived in Switzerland for 2 years, and then I moved again to New York City for 2 years, which is where I graduated, and then now I'm in PA. So like I've seen kind of very different realities and very different everythings, and I wouldn't necessarily say I was coddled, but I think in my experience it's more about like looking for opportunity and kind of going after it yourself. So when we talk about like independence, like that's something I kind of acquired because, well, when you grow up in Brazil, you get told like this is not where you want to stay. This is not where your end goal should be. Like my family's still there, my childhood friends are still there, and don't get me wrong, beautiful place, so much fun. Like you know, there's amazing sides to it, but it's not where you want to grow old.
There are more opportunities elsewhere.
Yes, like that's what you're looking for. That's what you're trying to do. So,
hey, let me ask you this: what were you taught to be afraid of? What were you taught? What did they tell you all of the dangers were in Brazil?
everything.
Everything.
Like just it's not don't do anything because you're afraid to do it. It's just like be smart and be on guard all the time.
So be on guard all the time.
All the time. Like there's no like leave your bag to hold your chair. Like if you do that, you're just like dumb. Like that's why a lot of tourists get pickpocketed or robbed or whatever, which gives us a worse reputation because everyone trusts everyone too much, or we trust everyone too little.
So how did that, receiving that message, how did that hold you back? Yeah, it just hold you back, like from like solving problems, like living, like I don't know, like.
I mean, I guess it makes you more cautious of everything you do.
It made you more cautious.
But in contrast, Switzerland was like the polar opposite of that. Like everything is perfectly fine, perfectly on time, perfectly organized. You can trust. It's kind of like
Korea.
Yeah, pretty much. And so I don't know. I've had both ends of the spectrum, and obviously I didn't live as a Swiss person would because I was raised differently.
So when you got to Switzerland, how long did it take you to just settle in and not look over your shoulders all the time? And
I still do it. Like no matter where I go, it's kind of like wired in. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Well, you were there for 2 years, then you went to New York City. So New York City, you're gonna be in that, and then, yeah, huh? Okay, I want to come, Luna. How about you? Like when you hear that you've been coddled and taken care of, and do you have one of those Korean moms who does everything?
Yeah. Tiger mom.
Tiger mom.
Honestly, when I first saw that question, what first came to mind was I don't know if that's the direction we're going, but the fear of getting compared to others. I think that's what really made ourselves protective to ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't represent all Koreans. I just represent myself. So I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I think I uh, Koreans tend to not, like standing up too much, like standing out too much. So we
No, just like when you had when we had the conversation the other day about your test score, you were like really reluctant. You didn't want to say
yeah.
because even saying means that you're kind of standing up. So
Right.
You don't want to say anything.
I mean, it definitely depends on what you're saying,
Yeah.
but usually we don't want to stand out, and
Yeah.
we just want to be like maybe humble and just into ourselves,
Okay.
and just take things by ourselves. So but like growing up in Korea and taking the education there, everything's like relative grading, and you always get compared to each other. So I think it's not like the government forced us to be that way, but still there were certain moments that made myself protective to.
But the culture does.
Yes.
And so a question is, so we have this critique. Young people today in Lebanon, Brazil, the US, whatever, but especially here in some countries more than others, you're not taught to take care of yourself. Like you're not given that opportunity to be free in the way that your parents and your grandparents and other people did. And do you think that's true?
In Korea?
Yeah, for your life. Yeah. Do you feel like, wow, I was really kind of held back and not given these opportunities to express myself and be independent?
I actually think it's the opposite.
Whoa. Okay. How so?
I think like the older generations were like that, and like as time passes, there are of course a lot of pressure when it comes to like getting jobs in Korea and studying there, but still there are opportunities open, and we still have the voice to kind of represent ourselves.
Right. Okay. And in part, social media for all four of you, social media becomes a voice in which you can really express yourself and experience the competence and confidence, independence. Let me ask this: So you're all being protected. We kind of talked about this a little bit. Let me just kind of stay with you for a second. What do you think people, like in this culture, right? What were people protecting you from? What are they trying to protect young people from? What did they not want to have happen to young people?
Like giving up? Is that the right?
I don't know. You think?
Because it's really competitive there, and like Korea has been to poverty, war, and also a massive growth in economy. So everything changes really fast, and people, especially young generation people, are having a hard time like getting jobs and trying to like communicate with others. And
so they're in a way they're protecting you from laziness. Not laziness, but giving up. Yeah, something.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Jaden, how about you? Like, what were the adults in your life trying to protect you from?
So I think like the big obvious thing that we try to protect that everyone tried to protect kids from was like physical danger, right? That we want to make prevent physical harm from coming to kids, right? Like that's why you make sure why you do all the precautions of stranger danger stuff to keep your kids from getting kidnapped, even though it's very unlikely. I think growing up in say college particularly, there's a lot of pressure placed on academic performance that particularly among my peers here, because so many of our parents are so academically are so academically successful that there's
so when you're going back to protecting you from the stranger danger, whatever it is, what do you remember of that as a kid? Like to what degree? Hang on, let me ask this question. To what degree have you held on to certain fears that other people put onto you that weren't really yours to have? Like, oh, be careful about that, or don't walk alone at night, or don't this or don't that, or whatever. I think of you, like your whole life. Don't breathe. Be careful. Like, I'm wondering, like, what have you held on to?
Not sure, like what specifically I held on to from that. Like I think.
So this idea of the coddling of young people, you don't really feel like you were coddled?
I mean, I think in a lot of ways, right? That like if our generation was more coddled than the generations before us, it's because our
No, they say they were less coddled.
No, yeah, we're more coddled.
That's right. Your generation is more coddled
Yeah,
than generations
yeah.
before.
That it's because our parents were like had more ability to coddle us. It's not that like
I got you. Yeah. So they could coddle you. Right. Like, you know, your parents or my parents, they couldn't coddle me because well, first off, my dad died, and then my mom was busy working 3 jobs. So, I raised myself, man. I made my lunch. I did this. I did that. I basically, to a great degree, raised myself. So it's like, yeah, there's nobody coddling me. So you're saying, yeah, well, that's part of the thing. Like, you're able to do that. Bro, what do you got? Yeah.
I think one point that we might be overlooking is the fact that especially post 2000s and after the internet boom, technology has had a very, very large impact on our generation.
Technology.
And that's why I feel like older generation, maybe our parents or our grandparents, if you wanted to do research in the late 90s or the late 80s, you would have to go to the library,
Yeah.
ask somebody what are the relevant documentations, figure out the authors and do it. Now you can just search it on your phone.
Yeah.
Or if you wanted to do like a scan of something,
Yeah.
you couldn't even email somebody. You had to call them. You had to.
Yeah,
there are
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of shortcuts right now that we have.
So
which
you can sort of maintain yourself, keep yourself in the safety of whatever environment it is that you've created for yourself.
Exactly. I feel that. I mean, everybody is constantly saying that the world is a smaller place because of how connected we are
Yeah.
all the way around the world.
Let me ask you a question real fast. So in India, growing up, to what degree were you coddled compared to
I
people
think-
who came before you?
I think that's a very difficult question to answer, primarily because we're on a time constraint. But without going into too much detail, there are a lot of variables that come into play when you talk about India, primarily because there's so many different parts of India that are so different in different cultures.
Yeah. But just
So-
speak about yourself.
In
You
my
feel like you were coddled?
I feel like, I mean, my entire philosophy, one of the main reasons why I wanted to leave India and come here was because I knew that my dad always, I knew that my dad would always do everything to make my life easier.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't want that because I wanted to get a little bit into the rough, grind a little bit, do a lot of the work. So I feel like in a certain way, especially in high school, a little less so because that's when I started going out.
Yeah, here, let me just ask you this question real fast, and I don't want to go to you. Is you feel like you needed to leave because you didn't want to be coddled? You didn't want to be taken care of. How different are you than other people you grew up with?
I think safety is a very, very, very bad thing.
You think it's a bad thing. How about your friends?
Well,
How about other people you grew
that
up
came out wrong. I think comfort is a very bad thing.
with? Comfort is. Okay, but compared to your friends, how different are you?
I feel like some of my friends have gotten so used to the fact that you finish school, you get a job, you start getting, you get married. There's a linearity in life that you just have to follow.
Okay.
And there's a certain things that you have to do. And a lot of, I mean, I'm also, because of the way we grew up, I also stand in that line of like, we have to do certain things. But I just feel like if I want to be the best version of myself, I have to do things that.
You gotta be independent. You
Exactly.
gotta take opportunities to live without fear. Yeah.
Not only without fear, I just have to
Do things. Try
do-
things.
try things which I probably wouldn't be allowed to if I was back home. Like
Yeah.
this, for
Yeah.
once.
Okay, cool. Thanks, man. How about you? What do you, how about people, this idea of like being taken care of and like, you don't get enough independence, how true is that for your friends?
For me, when I was a kid, when I was born, there was a war, and my parents, like my grandma and my parents, my grandma and my mom were living in a city that's close to the war. So pretty much I was there, so they were moving up and down from house to house to like not get like hit or something. So
To not get bombed.
yeah, basically. So like when I grew up, they wanted to make sure that this will never happen to me or my sister. So they wanted to make sure that we're protected as much as we can. So we like pretty much we moved very like far away. It's like middle Beirut up. So it was safer for us, and they made sure that we were like safe and sound and nothing happened to us whenever there is a war and stuff
So-
like that.
All right, so I want to, if you were to advise parents,
Yeah.
you can't advise them to, hey, raise your children in a war zone, okay? But you could advise, it sounds to me, listening to you, as though, wow, you had these really, what most people would say are a really difficult experience.
Well, I didn't see them.
You
I was
didn't
a
see
kid.
it.
I don't
because
remember.
You're a kid. Exactly. That's the point. But other people who are listening to what you're saying are thinking that, oh, I never want that for my kid or me. But what I'm hearing from you, what I'm sensing from you is, yeah, but that's, in a way, is like kind of what gave you a certain character.
Yeah. No, like right now, let's not talk about war, but like say there is a war, we're like no one's afraid in my family. So like you could fly from the airport and they're bombing it.
Yeah.
Like that's how.
No,
like,
I've been in some zone. I've been in some situations that many situations that most people would never want to be in.
yeah.
And when I think about my life, and I think like, years later, whether it's weeks or months or years, and I look back and I'm like, dude, to myself, like, dude, that was really stupid. That was really dangerous. That was really, really, really not a good idea. But
It was worth it.
damn, go for it. But yeah, okay. That's part of who it's there, man. Like I carry that. I got stories that I never, ever, ever tell the world that I was like, I wish I could just tell the people this story. It's a cool story. But a lot of times people wouldn't believe it. How about okay, so you get to Switzerland, but you grew up in Brazil in this space where and clearly you have money, right? So you're protected from certain things, but you grew up in a certain space of like where you're on edge all the time. But when you look back on that, to what degree do you look back on that with a certain fondness? Like, or do you look forward? Because you'll maybe end up in Brazil. Who knows where you'll end up? But to what degree do you look back on that as like, hey, I helped develop, this is who I am, man. Like, look here. I want to do something. Stand behind you. It's Clara? Kiana. Listen, because I've been to Brazil. Okay, I know Brazil. Kiana has had experiences. So I'm just looking out here at young women who look kind of like you. You know what I mean? But like, Kiana's had experiences that you just can't imagine. You know what I mean? Like being like, I know what it is. When she says, yeah, you're just taught to be aware all the time. It's like, yeah, you're taught to be aware all the time. So my question then, how much of that created you, your unique personality?
I mean, that's a hard question, but I think with the first two, like competence and confidence, I think that's a lot of. I mean, I got a lot from where I came from with that. And I guess independence too for moving, but it's definitely a big part of who I am, and it's like something that I exchange with people here. Like all my roommates are from, well, two of my roommates are from Jersey, one is from Pennsylvania, like pretty nearby places. So they don't think the same way that I do a lot of the time, and I'm like, bro, this is so obvious. Like it's like obviously like this. Like why wouldn't you think like that? And then they're like, no, why would you ever go so like dark or in that direction or take it that way, X, Y, and Z. I think it can be good, and it's a big part of who I am and how I navigate situations. But obviously, like it takes away like your innocence. I think at a really young age.
Yeah.
I was never really naive. Stuff like that. You can't really afford to be naive and have these
Okay. And so this idea of, like the coddling of this, like overprotecting kids, what I'm hearing from the two of you is, don't do too much of that, because it's like stuff. Your kid's probably not going to get kidnapped, so don't worry about that. There might be other issues, but just be careful, and it's probably not really a big deal. Huh? And you weren't coddled, really. Well, you were to a degree, in Brazil. Wait, were you living by yourself in Switzerland, or did you went to boarding school?
Yeah, I went to boarding school.
Okay.
So it was like, that's coddling. That's like ultimate coddling.
Oh my God, yeah.
So it's
especially when you show up from Brazil.
Yeah.
You're like,
so that's like like everything is just flipped upside down. But there's like the word competence. I do think I'm like generationally kind of incompetent. Like not because of where I was raised or anything. I just like, there's no way that I would be like going to the library and like sitting for like infinite hours, like looking for like a term somewhere in some book. Like when I
got you. Yep.
feel like that's a generational.
Yep. That's kind of what you were saying too. Hey, Lizzie, Izzy, do we have one? Yeah. We don't have any. Oh, right. Okay. Well, can you read one? All right. Hey, wait. Also, I was going to pull a question from the stream, but we can't pull one. I can't put it up, actually. Wait, you got one?
So Jennifer Young says, do you think there's a taboo placed on cultural integration between different cultures?
Cultural integration between different cultures? Oh, I'm not sure what that... Oh, man. Jennifer, you got to re-ask that question. You have to ask it in a different way, because I don't know. You're going at different... Do you have another one? All right. Does anybody have a question, by the way, or a comment that you want to make? Anybody? Yep.
I kind of wanted to like add my own experiences because I was raised by an immigrant mother who like fled her home place, and the idea of like coddling and how it's led to so many fights, not physical fights, but like arguments in my own household because of it. And I think one thing I noticed among just hearing everyone else talk was that like the idea of coddling for parents in the older generation is dependent on their experiences and what things they had to be protected by, and then how those limits looked like and how they passed on to us. Because there are times where my mom was like saying certain things to me about going out, and I don't know what she's talking about or why she fears those things, but for me it's easy to disagree with it because kind of like what he was saying before, like I can test those statements, I can research if this is truly the case, and when I see that it's not, I disagree with her, and then she refers to her past and her experiences of having to flee her country and the things she saw. So
wait, where are you from? Where's
Kurdistan.
your mom from? In Kurdistan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which part of
Dahuk, like northern Iraq.
Oh, Dahuk. Okay, northern Iraq. Yeah. Oh, totally. So she gets here.
Yeah.
And then you hear. Wait, when she got here? Did she? Everything she heard about the U.S. probably was guns and violence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like if I told her I wanted to go out at night, she would flip a table. She'd go crazy, and I'd have to debate her on why it's not that serious. Or then she would refer to how it was in Kurdistan and the things she saw here when she saw the news outlets and all those things.
So this is one of the issues, right? We bring, so this goes in some ways
Exactly,
Jennifer's question that she was asking. So I'm going to respond in one way to it. We bring our culture with us wherever we go, and we can't. It's not possible to not see through that lens.
Or like separate it and realize it's not the same here.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, like, you know, you come here, you know, my friends in Afghanistan, I have a colleague from Afghanistan who, my friend, he can't, you know, when he came here for the first time, even in the middle of the violence and the war, his friends and family were so afraid for him because he's coming to the United States. I'm like, bro, you're coming from Afghanistan. You know, my friend, another friend who you will meet in a couple weeks from Mosul, Iraq, same thing. When he came to the every time he come to the United States, people say, "Oh, make sure, be careful, you're going to the U.S." I'm like, and he's like, "Man, I'm from Mosul. I'm coming from Iraq." You know, so yeah. But you learn, right? You learn, and then you resisted. You were saying, I'm not going to go for that.
And again, that's why I was referring to the access of information, because for my mom, she wasn't over here researching these things. She was trying to escape war. So for me, it's like I can just go on Google and actually test those theories and come up with a better judgment than she had because of her experiences growing up.
Yeah. So it's like the kidnapping. It's like how many times, okay, how many times do you take an airplane ride and someone says, "Hey, be safe, have a safe trip, I hope you're safe"? And how many times do you take a car ride and people say that? Yeah, I'm going to hop in my car and I'm going to go down to the store. Most tragic accidents happen within a mile of our homes because that's mostly where we drive, and it's mostly where we drive without thinking. Nobody ever says that. Like, hey, oh, you're going to the store. Hey, be safe, be careful. But you go on an airplane to the other side of the world, and it's that. It's not knowing the numbers. Yeah.
So I'm Evelyn, and I just had like a comment back to like talking about like newer younger generations being like coddled because of like technology or just like circumstance of like the modern day. And I just think there's always this like, I don't know how to say, like jealousy of like older generations, like, oh, well, I had it so much harder and you guys are being coddled and like stuff. But like there's a long history of every older generation saying that about the younger generation. And so I don't think there's anything necessarily like notable about this generation necessarily being more coddled than like oh, well, I fought in a war and like there hasn't been a war at least
so
recently here.
Okay, here, listen, let me say this though. People think that you're American, right?
Yeah.
People think you're soft.
I mean, I'm kind of soft, I'm not gonna lie, but
Yeah, but well, lots of people have always been soft, but like how soft are you compared to, I mean, think of your friends, think about like, wait, hang on, what do you mean you're soft?
I think it depends on your personal experience. Like, I know that when growing up, like I was sheltered from a ton of stuff and like I didn't have anything happening in my life that would necessarily like be dangerous. I mean, I'm from like Western Pennsylvania and like there's not a whole lot going on
So
there.
when you hear them talking, Simon and Kiana, when you hear them talking about their experiences, do you say to does part of you say to yourself, or this guy about, well, were you born in Kurdistan? You were born here. When you hear them talking, do you feel like, oh, I missed out? Maybe I missed out on something.
I think it's good to be safe and good to like, I don't know. I don't see value in necessarily suffering throughout your life. I think you can build character other ways. I think there's,
Okay.
I mean, I don't see it as a positive to like have to deal with a lot of those things.
Dude, so she is soft.
I didn't claim I wasn't soft. I'm definitely soft.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I hear that. Yeah. No, it's a thing now, right? This is a thing. And have you heard this before, that you're a soft generation?
Many times, especially from some of my relatives, but
Yeah.
like the older relatives.
Yeah. And let me just tell you this. They didn't have it that rough. Okay?
Probably not.
Probably not. Most people don't have it that rough. As we get older, we tend to overestimate the challenges we had in our lives, just like we overestimate how smart we were when we were the age of most of you in the classroom. Because you get to my age and you forget that, that you were really not that intelligent and not that smart, and you were just trying to figure things out. So when people ask you questions, like I'm asking these four lovely people questions, we have the ideas like, oh, I would have answered it this way. And like, no, you wouldn't have. You would not have. Yeah, you were not that smart. Yeah.
I wanted to give my experience of like being coddled because it kind of relates to a guy from Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like born and raised American. But when I was in high school, I did a semester in Israel, proudly Jewish. And when I was there, I was in and out of bomb shelters. And from someone who's always lived in America, it was a very surreal experience to me.
Yeah.
We went down to the border between the Gaza Strip and Israel one time to fall. There were a lot of experiences with that, and I think when they're like coddling me in that experience,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that really changed my perspective, because I was very coddled growing up by my parents and my family, and I always kind of lived safe America is what I would say, and then when I went to Israel, very different experience, and I think that made me a lot tougher on the outside.
Yeah. Everybody says that. American Jews say that when they go to Israel, especially those who are of your age. And I never really understood that, although I have been in, again, I traveled lots and lots of places that most people wouldn't travel. But when I went to Israel the first time, I felt that. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And then I could feel a certain brusqueness from people, like harshness, kind of like something. And I'm like, I didn't understand what it was. And then I'm like, okay, I get that.
Everyone is just a lot like tougher. And I think going there and having those experiences made me a lot tougher. I came back to America, and it kind of made me realize like how coddled I was being American.
Yeah. And is that a good thing for you?
I think it is a good thing. Yeah.
How so? Like, how did you grow?
By going there?
No, by realizing that you were kind of coddled and taken care of and overprotected.
I think I realized that my issues here are so minor.
Yeah.
And I think it made me approach like everyday life a lot simpler, because really anything that I'm dealing with as a student in America, people are facing a lot harsher realities in Israel, or just other Jewish people don't have the same experiences that I do here.
Yeah. We had a project in both the West Bank. So did you go to the West Bank when you were there?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so and then we also had a project in Gaza. And so we worked in Gaza for about 4 years. And all of our colleagues in Gaza, very, very similar. I mean, this is one way in which, Jews and Palestinians, they share a common something. I don't know what it is, but it's a very similar thing. And and the use you get. Thanks for that. That's a really question for you. Okay. What are you not afraid of that adults around you are afraid of? It's actually for all of you. If you can do a quick answer, what are you not afraid of? Do you have an answer to it? What do you not fear that adults in your life actually fear? Do you have anything? Does anybody have anything? Jaden, do you have something? You got something? Huh? Does anyone have it? All right, hang on, man. I'm just going to hold that question out there. Yeah, bro.
This isn't really about what you were just talking about. I was more like the last statement. Like, for me, I can't really understand why there's something like so much wrong with being coddled. Like for me, if I have children, I want them to live a better life than I have. And I feel like I want them to live life that's easier than what I lived. So I feel like when they get like irritated by people being coddled, it just doesn't really make sense to me because you're the ones coddling them.
Right. Right. The adults are the ones doing the coddling. So when we look at all of you and we point fingers and be like, oh my God, you're so soft, right? Y'all are so soft. It's like, well, we made you soft. Well, come on, man. What's the problem? If you're soft, it's because we did it. Yeah. That's interesting. Huh. All right. Final. Hey, on the stream, sorry we didn't get to other questions, but do you have one more comment? Wait, hang on. Does any of you have a final comment? Do any of you have a final comment? Good.
I think that like sometimes when like people like try to do things to like make things safer, right? Like that you can, well, like that like some of the things that like make things practically safer, if you're making it practically safer from a danger that's like not really present, right? You're just creating a bunch of anxiety, right? Like that, like
totally.
Like that an airport's a really safe place to be, and like only one, like it hasn't been dangerous, but like the fact that you have like militarized looking police around an airport all the time makes an airport feel like a scary place and dangerous.
That's the nature of it, man. That's what it is. Like we create that certain anxiety and then. Hey, so first off, listen, thanks for volunteering. Can we have a round of applause? Thank you. Thank you.